Okay, I've got three Samsung-made Android-powered smartphones to review here. None of them can match the exalted heights of the Galaxy S2, the Apple iPhone 4 or the Nokia N8, my recent top three. But individually, they're all notable as they each have a unique selling point. USPs are vital not only for selling phones to the public, but also for getting my and your head round the differences between devices. In this case, I have the Samsung Galaxy Pro, the Samsung Europa, and the Google Nexus S, also made by Samsung. Here's their logo on the back. We'll start at the top end though with the Nexus S. It's certainly not the highest specified Android smartphone in the world. A single 1 GHz processor and 512 megabytes of RAM plus 16 gig of internal memory, no expansion, and only, in quotes, a 5 megapixel stills camera. The screen is Super AMOLED though, 4 inches, and very usable, and the other specs are as usual for a 2011 device. Nothing spectacular then, but I'm absolutely fed up with the fragmentation in the Android user interface from device to device, with every manufacturer adding their extensions and tweaks and layers and we know best widgets. And the one thing the Nexus S does, as does the Nexus One before it, is 100% Android. Nothing added, as they say in the food adverts, no additives, no oxidants, no e-numbers. Things just work as Google wants them to work, which means I can rely on options and applications being as I expect and not messed around with. Yes, it means that out-of-the-box experience is slightly more bare bones than on other Android phones, but this way I can choose what gets added and I can take pleasure from the purity of an operating system working in the way its creators intended. It's true that new users of Android phones won't have quite the same quasi-religious opinions as me here. They'll probably get used to Sense, which is the best of the add-on systems, or TouchWiz, MotoBlur, or whatever LG's offering is now called, and won't know any different. But I know, and so now do you. And being pure Android and Google's poster device means that the Nexus S gets every new release of the OS immediately. No waiting around for 6 months while a manufacturer tries to package it with their add-ons, if you're lucky. Also along for the ride with the Nexus S, built in is a near-field communications chip, so you can play along with NFC as it starts to take off around the world and explore a radical new connection technology that promises a lot, even if it's still really a year or two from mass market adoption. The Nexus S zips along though and is a thoroughly pleasant Android phone to use. The photos it takes with the 5 megapixel camera are really rather excellent, with a super close macro mode in particular. Just a test clip on the Nexus S, wide VGA, not terribly high quality. To be honest, I thought I'd hate the Nexus S's styling with this concave display, the unambitious camera and the lack of expansion, but the USP of pure Google experience has won me over. I've enjoyed using this Android smartphone more than any other so far. And so next down the price ladder, about £150 to the Nexus S's well over 300, is this the Samsung Galaxy Pro, aka the B7510, one of the very few Android smartphones with front-facing QWERTY keyboard. The form factor with its 2.8-inch screen, which is wide for a QWERTY candy bar, a decent keyboard and ample battery, promised quite a lot. I really wanted to love this little phone, but I couldn't. The worst part of it isn't the camcorder and camera, which had a dodgy 3 megapixels and quarter VGA capture stuck at 2005 spec levels. So this is test video at appalling resolution and quality on the Samsung Galaxy Pro. Nor is it my pet 8, white key legends on silver keys, meaning you can't read what's on all the keys half the time. Nor is it the appalling multimedia performance. Angry Birds, always a good test of a device's processor and graphics, is unplayable, and most videos wouldn't even start playing. What kills the Galaxy Pro at the end of the day, though, is the screen. It's partly the low quarter VGA resolution, which is understandable given the form factor, but which in this landscape form is often completely inadequate to handle the Android interface. Options and items you want are often hidden off the top or the bottom of a scrolling pane, and you have to be a geek to know what to look for and that you need to scroll in the first place. Nokia's E6 solved this problem for their similar device, review coming imminently, by using a VGA display, i.e. 4 times the number of pixels, so that at least all the screen elements could be fitted on. But landscape quarter VGA here just does not work. Also worth ranting about here is the nasty TFT display used. It's fine indoors, but as you might expect, it's hard to read when the sun's shining outdoors, even with the brightness turned up to the max. I thought we'd moved on from sun-phobic smartphones in 2011. Mind you, the Galaxy Pro isn't all bad. It's genuinely lovely to use. There are hardware Android control buttons, yay. The general build quality is excellent, even though it's plastic, and I love the textured back cover. It runs Android 2.2.2, so pretty up to date, and the battery life is decent. Possibly not surprising, as you're not going to use it for much of the things you'd normally use your Android phone for. The Galaxy Pro retailed for about £150 to £200 new, which shows its lack of pretensions. If you're heavily email and messaging focused and want an Android QWERTY phone to keep you productive with Google services through the day, the Galaxy Pro may still be a good bet. But the moment you start wanting to venture into normal browsing, entertainment, game, camera, app territory, which is basically Android, its budget specs are going to bite you well and truly on your proverbial. With budget specs, of course, what's really needed is a budget price, which is where the unique selling point of the Samsung Europa comes in. It's also known around the world as the i5500. It's retailing now on pay-as-you-go in the UK for £40. That's all in, no contract, not even a top-up needed. It's a similar price to T-Mobile Pulse Mini I was raving about recently, but this time there's a capacitive screen making a big difference to usability, plus all the usual smartphone specs. Remember, £40. 3G, Wi-Fi, GPS, DLNA, Wi-Fi tethering, again, 40 quid, or under 1/10 the price of an iPhone 4 or Galaxy S2, yet with arguably many of the same functions. Or 5 times cheaper than the budget Galaxy Pro I've just been looking at. 5 times cheaper. Staggering. Something's got to give, surely. Let's investigate. Multimedia here is smoother than on the more expensive Galaxy Pro, surprisingly, but there are still codec issues, and the whole experience is, well, a bit frustrating after seeing what the Nexus S and, for example, modern Symbian phones can do with video. Sound output is okay. Certainly better than that on HTC's £400 Android superphones. Angry Birds and other graphically intense games play just fine, low resolution aside. And unlike the Galaxy Pro's different aspect ratio, we're normally portrait mode here, so there are a fewer app compatibility issues. But using Android on Quarter VGA does remain a bit of a come down in 2011. The OS just cries out for more real estate. The camera's a fixed focus 2 megapixel affair. They're surprisingly good within that limitation, and with care you can still take a half decent snap for Facebook and for the web.
But don't expect anything special from the Samsung Europa's video capture.
Although the Europa is being sold with Android 2.1 on board, Samsung's official Keys software immediately recognises it and upgrades it to Android 2.2. Froyo. Great to see even hyper-budget smartphones now being offered something up to date. There are the same TFT screen in sunlight issues as on the Galaxy Pro, made slightly worse here by Samsung shipping the Europa with a screen protector from the factory. No doubt this will help protect the unit in the hands of rough and tumble normobs, but it also knocks outdoor visibility significantly. And it actually took me a day of use to spot the screen protector, so well positioned was it. But off it had to come. Aside from the utterly insanely low price, the Samsung Europa is all about the form factor though. It's a perfect size for fitting in the average hand. It's perfect for slipping into any pocket. And wonder of wonders, it has full hardware buttons for the key Android functions, plus a full D-pad, which doubles as a shutter button, and hardware send and end keys. Listeners to my Phone Show Chat podcast will recognise this as being just about the perfect pub phone for Tim, hopefully. So some limitations then for the Europa, but it's an astonishing slice of Android for £40 and anybody's perfect starter smartphone. The Galaxy Pro, well, this is very well built if you simply must have the form factor, but this Europa makes the Galaxy Pro look very overpriced. But for me, has to be back to the Nexus S. It's pure, it's uncut, it's undiluted Android at its very best.